Hey everybody, I'm Bede, aka the Terrible Australian Super Podcast, and welcome to the 11th edition of my 2014 MIFF video reviews. For this one, I will be chatting about the the French horror film Among the Living, and as well as Kelly Reichardt's brand new film. Sorry, I started. Hey everybody, I'm Bede, aka the Terrible Australian Super Podcast, and welcome to the 11th edition of my 2014 MIFF video reviews. For this one, I will be talking about the new French horror film from the directors of Inside, Among the Living, and as well as Kelly Reichardt's brand new film, Night Moves. So let's get right into it. First up is Among the Living. So I got my MIFF guide here, as I've been using for the past few videos, so I can tell you guys what these films are about. First up, Among the Living. After skipping school to go exploring, three boys stumble across an abandoned movie set where they discover a man dragging a bloodied woman in chains. Unable to convince anyone of what they've seen, they return home only to discover that whoever it was has definitely seen them. Now, like I stated before at the beginning of the video, this is the new film from French horror directors Alexandre Bastilio and Julia Mari. I'm probably pronouncing their names wrong, so forgive me. And they previously made the horror films Inside and Livid. Now, it's no secret that if you've heard me on the podcast or in some of my writings for supermastery.com, that I am not a fan of French horror films. I just find when it comes to horror from that country, I've just never been a fan, and I find pretty much most of the horror films that come out to be really overpraised, very derivative, pretty boring, and just very overrated. And I don't know, maybe I'm not seeing the same thing as everybody else does, but to me they've only been two. I mean, when I'm talking about French horror films, I'm not talking about the classics like Eyes Without a Face or anything like that. I'm sort of talking about more of the sort of French new wave of horror that's been around for the past 11, 12 years, so which sort of started with High Tension, and High Tension's really good. I like that one, even though the ending is the twist ending is stupid, and that's the only one. That's one of the only two I've liked, and the other one, of course, is actually Bastilio and Maury's debut film Inside, which I thought was a fantastic horror film, very intense, and just very well put together. It's just a great horror film that really harkens back to the type of stuff that John Carpenter used to do. And I've had high hopes for these guys, along like I do with Alexandre Aja, like with Bastilio Mori, to make great horror films. Their follow-up to Inside, Livid, I was disappointed by. I think visually it was fantastic, but I just didn't find it as interesting or as compelling as it could have been, and but I was looking forward to Among the Living because it seemed like it was going back to sort of that kind of story, which are inside more of slasher type of mode, and I really like the premise, kind of like this sort of Steven Spielberg meets Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of story, and after seeing it, I'm not gonna lie, I found this one very disappointing too, and I'm actually starting to, and both the directors of this film are starting to lose their goodwill from me. It's a watchable film. I wasn't bored or anything like that while I was watching it, but it's just not. It's a movie where it doesn't really capitalize on its premise. Like it has a great premise, but it really doesn't do much with it at all. I mean, like I said, it sort of has, the first half is sort of like a Steven Spielberg type film, or even Stand By Me, where it's about these three best friends who are each different in their own way, and they're sort of growing up in a small town in France, and then of course they sort of get into this horrifying situation, and but unfortunately it never really strikes the balance with those sort of Spielbergian tone and this sort of hardcore horror tone. They don't really mesh well together as they would, and it doesn't help that. And also, Basilio and Mori are very well known as gorehounds. I mean, you only have to see inside just to see how freaking violent and gory that film was. Livid was a different beast altogether because that was more sort of a supernatural type film. I was expecting something very violent in this film, and it does. And believe it or not, it's a really mostly bloodless film. Like what I mean by that is like at least until the third act of the film, where I think is actually where the film actually finally finds its pulse, and and it has some pretty cool sort of gore moments. But yeah, but until then, like there's some killings and all that in before this third act, but it's they're just you don't see anyone getting killed, and it's usually off screen or it gets cut away before you see anything else. And also I think another reason why it disappointed me a lot is that the kid characters, the three young boys that our three main characters, the young boys of the film, their dialogue, I don't know whether it's just Bastilio and Mori, because they wrote the script as well, tried to write sort of Americanized dialogue, but honestly, or maybe it's the translation, I don't know, of their dialogue, but I'm sorry, but the dialogue in this movie, or at least what was subtitled from the original translation, was atrocious. Like, no way would kids in real life talk like the kids in this film, and it seems like they're trying way too hard. And it kind of reminded me sort of like the dialogue in Stand By Me, but unfortunately it just comes across really forced, really dumb and stupid. And also the characters in the film are, the decisions they make and just how they're sort of developed is pretty dumb as well. And also, just like in freaking Inside, I don't know what it is with these directors, but they like to create really dumb cop characters in their films. And of course, Among the Living has, again, stupid cop characters. At least, like, they're stupid in this film, but at least it didn't annoy me as much as they did in The Inside, which was the one flaw that stopped that film from being a 5-star horror masterpiece for me. But yeah, and also I didn't like the ending as well. It's an ending, spoilers, kind of sets up for a sequel or something like that, or an open ending kind of ending. But unfortunately, it just annoyed me, and yeah, this film is overall this film is a big disappointment. It just didn't work for me at all, and it's a film I wouldn't mind actually seeing being remade, because it's a great premise, and I think if and I think another director could probably do well with it, but unfortunately, in the hands of these guys, it just didn't work, and to me, it's just another big overrated disappointment from France. So if I had to give this film a rating, I originally gave it 2.5, but the more I thought about the film, to me it's just getting a 2 out of 5. Unfortunately, like it's watchable and I wasn't bored, but yeah, it's pretty dumb. It's a pretty dumb horror film. And on to the next film, which of course is Night Moves. Hold on. Okay. Jesse Eisenberg, Dakota Fanning, and Peter Sarsgaard star as fringe-dwelling idealists who plan an attack on a Portland hydroelectric dam to protest its environmental devastation. But when they are sidelined by unforeseen consequences of their actions. But they are sidelined by unforeseen consequences of their actions. Now, I haven't seen many of Kelly Reichardt's films. I've only seen one other film of hers, and that was Wendy and Lucy, which I thought was a terrific film. And I still haven't seen her previous film, Meek's Cutoff, which I know my podcast co-host and friend Super Marcy is a huge fan of and had it in her top 10 of 2011. And I know a bunch of other people who love it as well. But I still haven't seen that one yet. But I was still looking forward to this film, regardless, just based on Wendy and Lucy alone. But yeah, I just like Among the Living, I found this one a bit of a disappointment too. Like, I know it's not like your traditional... It's a thriller, but not in the traditional sense. But I don't know, I just didn't find the film as interesting or as engaging as it could have been. I think the three leads, Jesse Eisenberg, Dakota Fanning, and Peter Sarsgaard do solid work in the film, but I don't know, the film just didn't captivate me, and I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it was that it sort of you kind of know exactly where the story is going to go. Like, it's a pretty predictable plot, and it's not. And I just didn't like it. Then the film does deal with some interesting ideas and themes, and also some interesting plot developments. But yeah, it just didn't sort of do them in a way that I found compelling and or even interesting, and I don't know. It just didn't. It's not a bad film. I was still found that I was still found it watchable just due to the performances and also Kelly Reichardt's direction, who she does a pretty solid job. I don't know. I feel like it just was lacking something. I wasn't sure what it is, but like I said before, whatever it for me, what it was lacking, it just didn't make it compelling to me as a viewer. And maybe it's because of the slow pace of it all and the predictability of the script. It could be those, but I'm not sure. It just didn't. This film just didn't really work for me either. I mean, it'll probably work. I mean, if you've seen other Kelly Reichardt's other films, you'll probably like this one. But yeah, it just didn't really work for me. It's not a bad film, and it is watchable, but I don't know. It just lacked a little something to have made it a really good film. So overall, if I had to rate this film, I'd give Night Moves a 2.5 out of 5. Alrighty, that's the end of this 11th edition of my MIFF video reviews. Keep a lookout very soon for my 12th edition, in which I'll be talking about the documentary The Search for Wang Wang, and as well as the period coming-of-age comedy drama Queen and Country. So keep a lookout for that one, and I'll see you guys later. See you, everyone.